Hey everybody, it's me, Mr. Anderson, wearing a hat in school. Can you believe it? It's the approximate date that Jesus died and changed our world forever. So in case you were wondering, just wanted to throw that out there. We are starting 7.4 today, and it's just working with percents, decimals, and fractions. Because if I say, hey, give me half of everything you own because I'm divorcing you, it's kind of a sad story, then I could say a fraction, give me half of what you own, or I could say a decimal, give me 0.5 of what you own, or I could say a percent, which would be what? 49, no, I'm just kidding, 50% of what you own. So 50% looks like 0.5, which looks like 1 over 2, 1/2, right? So let's take a look at that. I think you're going to enjoy this because you already know a lot of this. There are a couple spots that I'm going to warn you about that if you go too quick, you might make a couple blunders. So title for the day, fractions, decimals, percents. Let's get right into it. Here is a circle graph. 500 students prefer to spend their time, and 45 of them said reading. Some said with friends. Others said with family or watching TV. So I think they're going to ask us a percent problem here. What percentage would you say like to spend their time reading? Well, you've got to think about how many total you're talking about first, right? But let's take a look at this. A circle graph represents data as parts of a circle. All right, each part is a percent of the data. The sum of the percents must equal 100% because the circle graph represents all of the data. Okay, the sum of the fractions must equal 1. All right, so example 1 is going to ask us about this. Let me scoot that up. Oh, I might need to scoot this out. All right. The fraction of students who prefer to spend their time with friends is what? How many like to do that? Oh, 40. Out of what is the total? 500. So 40 out of 500 prefer to spend their free time with friends. How do you do that as a percent? We have a fraction here, 40 out of 500. We want that to be a percent. Well, some of you would just whip your calculators out and you would actually do this. You'd actually type in 40 divided by 500. It would give you some decimal, which then you already know how to convert to percent. But let's use what we talked about in 7.3 real quick. Can you understand it this way? And I think you can. Watch this. 40 out of 100 is going to be the same as, that's what equal sign means, right? The same as something out of 100. Some percent p out of 100, because percent is just a fraction out of 100, isn't it? So we just set up a proportion. This ratio is going to equal this ratio, but what number for p makes this true, makes that equal that? Well, we do our cross multiplying or cross products. 40 times 100 divided by 500. And let's see if I can do that on my calculadora real quick. 40 times 100 divided by 500 equals 8. All right, so that is 8 out of 100. Now we still haven't answered the question. It said, what percent? So 8 out of 100 is what percent? And that is 8%. We talked yesterday about percent meaning per 100, per cent. So this is 8 per, that line means per, 8 per 100, 8% looks like that. Was that easy? Yeah, 8% of the students prefer to spend their time with friends. Okay, let's flip the page. I'm going to scoot the book over and check this out. Writing a decimal as a percent. Write the decimal as a fraction with a denominator of 100. All right, so take a look at this. 0.89, that's a decimal, right? 0.89 as a fraction is the same as 89 out of 100 because it goes to the hundredths place. Tens place, hundredths place, 89 out of 100. Well, obviously that's 89%, right? Let's see what else they put here. Writing the decimal as a percent, it's not always quite that easy, but it's not too terribly hard. Any decimal that you see, decimal number could be 4.89 or even just 5. That's a decimal, quote unquote, because it's 5.000, right? Any decimal or number that you see that's not fraction form, not percent, you can change to a percent using this simple method. Find the decimal spot, decimal point, and go 2 to the right and slap a percent sign on it. So 0.63 is 63%. 2.7, 2 places over, there's an understood 0 there, is 270%. Okay? Yes, you can have a percent that's more than 100%. Might be confusing for now, but just go with it, okay? Just move the decimal place 2 places to the right. 0.007 is actually 0.7%. Now here is one of the spots. Here's one of the spots where people get confused. Look at this. If I said, hey, I get 0.7% of, I don't know, I get 0.7% of your Skittles because it's my right. I'm taxing you in your candy. 0.7%. That is not 0.7% here. That's not 7 out of 100. No, because 7 out of 100 would be 7%, wouldn't it? It's also not 70 out of 100. No, that'd be 70%. 0.7% is how many out of 100? It's 0.7%. 0.7 out of 100. So don't get confused. Maybe I should put a 0 there. Some people might be angry about that. All right. If you see 0.7%, that's a very small fraction. That's less than 1%. Look at this. 1%. Here's 1%. 1% is greater than 0.7%. Hey, if I get 1% of your Skittles, you got 100 Skittles, I only get 1. But if I get 0.7% of your Skittles, that means if you got 100 Skittles, I get to cut one of them, 7/10 of one of them, because I get 0.7 of one Skittle. Yeah, and you better pay up. I'm just kidding, I don't. Yeah, I used to like Skittles, but now it's like, not so much. I like chocolate though, you know. All right, let's see what they say here. To go the other way now, this was from decimal to percent. To go the other way, from percent to decimal, you just move the decimal point the other way. Okay, so write the percent as a decimal and as a fraction. All right, 0.32%. 0.32% is not 32 out of 100, guys. No. 0.32% is less than 1%. So how can you do this and not get messed up? Well, if we're going from percent to decimal, let's go 2 places back to the left. So move the decimal point, and this is going to be 0.0032. That's what it is as a decimal. If I asked you, if I gave you this decimal and said, hey, write that as a percent, you would move that way. Now, for some of you guys who are working on your assignment today, see my page flip in here? You might have to flip back and say, oh yeah, decimal to percent, you move the decimal place to the right. Percent to decimal, you move it to the left. Okay, that's fine. Flip back if you need. Now, 0.32% as a fraction. It's not 32 over 100. It's not 3.2 out of 100, because 3.2 would be 3.2%. But this is 0.32. So let's see how they do that for us. Write it as a fraction. 0.32. Oh, well, just think about the actual word. I'm going to write it once more. 0.32%. Instead of actually writing this percent symbol, just do per, because that line means per, 0.32 per 100%. Now we have it. Is that fraction? Is that a fraction? No. A fraction can't have a decimal in it, in the numerator or denominator. Okay, a ratio can. There could be 0.32 pigs out of 100 pigs that have a certain disease. Okay, when you're talking about ratios, you can use decimals in there. At least I've seen that before. But we're writing this as a fraction. You can't have a decimal in a fraction. So how can we get rid of this decimal? Oh, let's see. Well, to get rid of this decimal, here's what they do. To make that into an actual whole number, I got my mouse in the way here, don't I? Hello. To make that as a whole number, multiply it by 100. That would move that 2 places to the right, but you also got to do that to the bottom. Okay? So now we've got 32, because I moved that twice to the right, out of 100 times 100 is 4 zeros in all. 32 out of 10,000, which reduces to, and they have it right here, reduces to 2 out of 625. So 0.32% as a fraction is 2 out of 625. Let's look at this bottom one. Maybe it's the most challenging. 2.5% as a decimal, just move it 2 places to the left, and you get 0.025 as a decimal. Percent, 2.5 out of 100. You can multiply by 10, top and bottom, to get 25 out of 1,000. Reduce that. This one, 120%. 120%, I just noticed that this one's a little different. 120% is more than 1. In a decimal form, it's going to be more than 1. So it's more than 100%, more than 1, 1.2. You just move that decimal place 2 places to the left. As a fraction, it's still 120 per 100, 6 over 5, which they simplified to a mixed number. All right, so there is one more example, and you are on your way to glory. Ordering fractions, decimals, and percents now is, listen, I've told you this before, but I tell you again. When they have these ordering problems, your final answer needs to use the actual figures that they put. So here's what that means. They say they've got a 8.7%, a 1/8, and a 0.1. When you order those for me, the way that you're going to solve that is to make each of these a percent, or each of them a decimal, or each of them a fraction. I think they're doing decimal here. I would recommend that as well. But once you've got each of them as a decimal and you see where they are, look how they do their answer. If I would circle this to show you, but I don't want to write in this book. They write their answer using those same figures as in the problem, okay? So let's see, 8.7%, let's write that as a decimal. Do we go right or do we go left? We go left. Percent to decimal go left. So we've got 0.087. 1/8 as a decimal is 0.125, and this one's already a decimal. So here's 0.1. Here's 0.087, which is less than 0.1. Okay, so that's over here. And then 0.125 is more than 0.1. So there is our order. That was the 8.7%. This was the 0.1, and this one was the 1/8. So we order them like that, and we say, booyah, can't touch this. No, 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 no. And I believe that you are going to kill it today. I'm just looking to see if there are any that look extremely difficult. Here is your problems for this chapter. So go ahead and shout out right now which one looks the hardest I can help you out with. Can't hear you guys. Still can't hear you. No, I think if you have paid good attention, I think each of these you should be able to do quite well. We already talked about a circle. 1%. Ooh, hey, please, I implore you, read instructions. Read instructions. Because on these guys, you need to write as a decimal and a fraction. And if you don't do that, you're going to get an F every time. Because you're just going to do the decimal, and maybe you get it right. Still got an F, because that's 50% correct, right? It's 1 out of 2. So read instructions, do it the way it needs to be done. 1% as a decimal is 0.01. Because I move it 2 places to the left. And 1% as a fraction is 1 per 100. 1 out of 100. Can you simplify 1 out of 100? No, you can't. Alrighty then. One last reminder. Let's just do this one. 44.55 as a decimal. That's percent. That's close to half. That's somewhere like 0.5, right? So if you start going this way to the right and you're like, oh yeah, that's 4,455. No, you're way off. 44%-ish, 44% is around half. It's around 0.5. Decimal should be going this way. So, as a decimal, 0.4455. There it is as a decimal. Now, how do we make that into a fraction? Let's do the, well, we could put this tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s place. So 4455 over 10,000. Because that's in the tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s place. So I take that and stick it over 10,000. Now I'm going to have to reduce, which I would start by dividing top and bottom by 5 and just keep going as you can, which I'm not going to do right now. You can do that by yourself. All right? So, have fun. We'll see you next time. And now I forgot how to stop this thing. Pause.